There's a reason you met the narcissist, and it wasn't by accident. This was never just a relationship or a test of strength. It was a divine setup, a spiritual battlefield disguised as love. You were chosen to face darkness, not to destroy it, but to transcend it. Every tear you cried, every silent prayer you whispered when no one saw, it was heard. God allowed this battle because He knew you could handle what others couldn't. The narcissist came to shake your faith, but also to awaken your divine power. This is not a story about pain, it's about purpose. Because when the chosen one finally realizes who they are, the war shifts from survival to ascension. Stay till the end, because what I'm about to reveal will make you see why your suffering was sacred and how heaven was never a place you had to reach. It was something you were becoming all along. And if this message already speaks to your soul, then you're not here by chance. You're part of the awakening. So stay with me and let's walk through this revelation together. And don't forget to comment, "I'm chosen," if you feel this truth in your spirit. Divine selection is never random. It's not luck, and it's not coincidence. When God chooses someone, it's never for comfort, it's for purpose. The chosen one is not picked because they are perfect, but because they carry something powerful inside them, something that only pressure, pain, and spiritual fire can bring out. Every battle they face, every betrayal, every heartbreak is part of a sacred refining process. You see, God doesn't send the strongest at the start. He sends the ones who are willing. He shapes them through storms until their faith becomes unbreakable. That's why the chosen one's war isn't really against the narcissist. It's a war against illusion. The illusion that power comes from manipulation, that control can replace divine truth. The narcissist believes they can play God in someone else's life, but the chosen one learns that real power is surrender. Surrender to divine timing, divine lessons, and divine strength. When God allows darkness to touch a chosen soul, it's never to destroy them. It's to reveal what cannot be destroyed. The narcissist becomes the catalyst, the one who unknowingly triggers awakening. Their cruelty tests compassion. Their lies sharpen discernment. Their chaos teaches peace. And in that testing ground, the chosen one learns what weapons heaven truly forges. Not anger, not revenge, but wisdom and spiritual clarity. They begin to see that they were never fighting a person. They were fighting what that person represented. Ego, illusion, and the forces that pull humanity away from light. In the heat of that invisible war, something miraculous happens. The chosen one realizes that the battle was never outside. It was always within. The true enemy wasn't the narcissist's behavior, but the temptation to become like them, to lose faith, to harden the heart, to forget divine identity. And the moment they choose differently, when they choose forgiveness over hatred, awareness over reaction, love over fear, that's when heaven intervenes. That's when the soul ascends. God watches closely in these moments, because it's in this unseen war that a warrior's heart is proven. Anyone can preach light when life is kind.
But only the truly chosen can still radiate faith when everything around them feels like darkness. This is how divine strength is revealed, not through dominance, but through endurance. The chosen one learns to stand alone and still feel guided, to walk through betrayal and still carry grace, to face manipulation and still choose truth. That is divine strength, not noise, not force, but calm power born from pain that was never wasted. So, no, it was never coincidence. You were chosen because you could withstand what would have broken others. You were sent into battle not to lose yourself, but to find the version of you that cannot be shaken. That's the secret of divine selection. God doesn't pick the easy path for his warriors. He picks the soul that can turn suffering into strength and wounds into wisdom until heaven itself recognizes their light. Heaven is not somewhere you go after life. It's something you awaken within life. It's not above the clouds or behind some golden gate. It's a frequency, a divine state of being that only those aligned with truth, peace, and love can experience. The battle between the chosen one and the narcissist is not about gaining territory or winning validation. It's about vibration. One operates from fear and ego, while the other rises through faith and awareness. The narcissist lives trapped in a lower frequency, one built on control, envy, and illusion. They chase power outside themselves, believing they can manipulate people and situations to feel superior. But heaven doesn't open to that vibration. No amount of charm, wealth, or dominance can unlock a frequency you refuse to embody. The chosen one, on the other hand, begins to see the pattern. They realize this battle was never physical. It was energetic. Each argument, each silent treatment, each mind game was a test to see whether they would match the narcissist's energy or ascend above it. Every time the chosen one chooses peace over reaction, compassion over revenge, they shift their vibration closer to heaven. It's not weakness, it's mastery. Because heaven vibrates at the frequency of stillness, truth, and unconditional love. You can't access it through control, you access it through surrender. When God said, "On earth as it is in heaven," he wasn't talking about a location, he was talking about alignment. Heaven is the mind at rest, the heart without bitterness, the soul free from illusions. The narcissist can't reach this state because their entire existence is built on pretending to be powerful, pretending to be good, pretending to be in control. But pretense keeps you locked in a lower realm. And that's what makes the chosen one's awakening so powerful. At some point, the chosen one stops fighting to prove their worth. They stop explaining, defending, and chasing closure. Instead, they raise their vibration and detach from the noise. That's when the real war ends, not because the narcissist changes, but because the chosen one transcends the game entirely. They move from reaction to realization, from chaos to calm. And in that moment, they enter heaven, not as a destination, but as a state of consciousness. Heaven is the frequency of truth. It's the quiet strength that comes when you no longer seek validation from those blinded by ego. It's the peace that can't be stolen, even when the world tries to shake it. That's why the chosen one's greatest victory isn't escaping the narcissist, it's rising above their vibration. Heaven was never somewhere they were trying to reach. It was the light they were becoming all along.
It's one of the hardest truths to accept, that the very person who caused you the most pain might have been part of God's plan all along. The narcissist, in all their manipulation, cruelty, and control, unknowingly becomes an instrument of divine transformation. They are not chosen out of holiness, but out of necessity. They serve as a mirror, reflecting every hidden wound, every unhealed part of the chosen one that still needs to rise into light. Their darkness awakens what was sleeping inside the chosen one: discernment, boundaries, and the strength to love without losing oneself. God, in His infinite wisdom, sometimes sends storms, not to destroy, but to reveal what's unshakable. The narcissist's presence is that storm. They shake the chosen one's identity until illusion falls away. Every lie the narcissist tells pushes the chosen one closer to truth. Every manipulation teaches the power of awareness. Every act of cruelty forces the chosen one to choose faith over fear. The pain they cause becomes holy fire, burning away weakness, ego, and codependency until only purity remains. You see, the narcissist believes they are in control. They think they are breaking you, winning the game, feeding off your energy. But what they don't realize is that God is using their actions to write your ascension story. The very thing meant to destroy you becomes the thing that defines your awakening. Without their betrayal, you might never have learned self-love. Without their deceit, you might never have learned discernment. Without their rejection, you might never have turned fully toward God. In this way, the narcissist becomes the unintentional servant, a dark vessel carrying out a divine purpose they cannot comprehend. Their role is temporary, but its impact is eternal. They come into the chosen one's life to trigger transformation, but they can't stay, because once their purpose is fulfilled, their frequency no longer matches the light they helped awaken. It's a painful irony. They dig their own spiritual grave while pushing the chosen one closer to heaven. When the chosen one finally understands this, resentment fades. They stopped asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start seeing, "It happened for me." That's the shift from victim to vessel. The battle wasn't punishment, it was preparation. And God, in His mysterious way, turned even the narcissist schemes into divine strategy. So yes, the narcissist was part of the plan, not to bless you, but to break the illusions around you. They served their role perfectly, even in their wickedness. And when the lesson is complete, God removes them just as suddenly as they appeared. Because their job is done. The chosen one has awakened. And what once felt like a curse is revealed as the most painful yet powerful form of divine intervention. The war between ego and spirit is the oldest battle in existence, the unseen clash that shapes every soul's destiny. The narcissist and the chosen one are just the earthly faces of this eternal struggle. The narcissist fights to dominate, to control, to be worshipped. They live for validation. Every interaction is a test of power. Their world revolves around me, my image, my importance, my control.
But the chosen one's fight is different. They are not here to rule, they are here to rise. Their battle is not about proving worth to others, but about remembering their divine worth that was never lost. That's what makes this war cosmic. It's not a fight for attention, it's a fight for alignment. The narcissist represents ego, the illusion that separation, manipulation, and superiority can create safety. They feed off fear because fear gives them control. The chosen one represents spirit, the truth that peace comes from surrender, not dominance. The narcissist wants to win the world. The chosen one wants to win back their soul. When these two energies meet, sparks fly, because light and darkness cannot coexist quietly. The narcissist senses the chosen one's purity and feels threatened. To the narcissist, light is competition, but to the chosen one, darkness is invitation, a call to rise higher. This is where the real awakening begins. The chosen one starts realizing that the narcissist's attacks are not personal, they're energetic reactions. The ego cannot tolerate peace because peace exposes illusion. The chosen one's calmness enrages the narcissist, their forgiveness confuses them, and their silence destroys the control the narcissist craves. The more the chosen one embodies spirit, the weaker ego becomes. And that's when the narcissist fights harder, because they can feel their power slipping. But in truth, it's not their power that's fading, it's their illusion. Ego fights to be seen, spirit shines naturally. Ego needs followers. Spirit walks alone if it must. Ego manipulates through fear. Spirit liberates through truth. Every time the chosen one chooses love over pride, humility over defense, faith over anxiety, they win another invisible victory. They are no longer reacting from ego, they are responding from spirit. And that's when the war starts to end, because spirit doesn't need to destroy ego, it simply outgrows it. In the end, the chosen one understands the truth. The narcissist was never the real enemy. The enemy was the temptation to fight on their level. The moment you stop playing their game, the battle dissolves. You realize that ego and spirit can't coexist in the same heart. One must surrender. And when the chosen one chooses spirit, ego loses its throne. That's the victory heaven celebrates, not that one person won, but that one soul remembered who they are. The battle was never personal. It was sacred. It was the war that turns humans into healers, pain into power, and souls into light.
It's easy to look at the pain and ask, why did God let this happen? But what looks like abandonment is often preparation. God didn't turn his back on the chosen one. He allowed the darkness to do what comfort never could, reveal the light that was buried inside. Every heartbreak, every betrayal, every sleepless night had a divine purpose. You can't know the strength of your spirit until it's tested. You can't discover divine authority until something challenges it. So God allowed it,
not to break the chosen one, but to bring them into awareness of who they truly are. The narcissist became the fire, and the chosen one became the gold. Through that fire, illusions burned away, illusions of control, dependence, and identity built on other people's approval. The chosen one was forced to face their deepest fears, rejection, abandonment, and loss. But hidden inside those wounds was the awakening, the realization that they were never powerless, that the same God who allowed the storm also anchored their soul through it. The darkness didn't come to destroy them. It came to show them the light that could not be destroyed. You see, divine authority isn't given, it's realized. It's not something you earn through praise or status. It's something that awakens when everything you depend on crumbles. God allowed the narcissist to strip away the false foundations so the chosen one could rebuild on truth. Without betrayal, they wouldn't have learned discernment. Without silence, they wouldn't have learned to hear God's voice. Without pain, they wouldn't have learned power. This is the paradox of divine training. God hides your strength inside your suffering. While the chosen one begged for deliverance, heaven was saying, "Endure, I am teaching you authority." Because real authority doesn't scream. It doesn't chase validation or prove worth. It moves with quiet confidence, born from the understanding that nothing outside of you can control what God has placed within you. That's why the chosen one's greatest revelation often comes after their greatest heartbreak. They stop asking, "Why me?" and start saying, "Now I see." God allowed the war to happen because the chosen one's light was ready to emerge. The darkness was simply the mirror that made it visible. Every attack, every deception, every tear became part of their spiritual education. They learned not just how to survive evil, but how to rise above it, how to carry divine peace into chaos and still not lose themselves. That's divine authority, standing unshaken while the world tries to shake you. So when you look back, you'll understand God was never punishing you. He was promoting you. The war wasn't a curse, it was a calling. And the moment the chosen one recognized that truth, they stopped fighting for survival and started walking in purpose. Because now they don't just believe in God, they carry His authority.
Suffering has always been one of life's greatest teachers, silent, merciless, and yet profoundly sacred. When you are chosen, pain becomes your classroom and endurance your greatest lesson. Every betrayal wasn't a punishment, it was preparation. Every tear wasn't a sign of weakness, it was sacred water washing away illusion. The chosen one learns early that heaven cannot simply be inherited, it must be embodied. And embodiment requires trials. It requires walking through fire and refusing to become ashes. God allows this because He knows that only through the weight of suffering can the soul rise into divine strength. You see, the hidden purpose of suffering is transformation.
Pain strips away the false identities, the version of you that depended on people's love, the version that believed peace existed outside yourself. Through heartbreak and loss, the chosen one learns what no comfort could ever teach: endurance, forgiveness, and faith. These three are the keys that unlock heaven within. Endurance teaches patience, the ability to trust divine timing even when life feels unfair. Forgiveness frees the heart. It cuts the cord that keeps you tied to those who wounded you. And faith, perhaps the most powerful of all, reminds you that darkness cannot erase light. It only reveals how deeply the light shines. Every spiritual warrior has a moment when they cry out to God, asking why the pain doesn't stop. And heaven's answer is always the same: because you are still being molded. The chosen one's suffering is never wasted. It is divine craftsmanship, the shaping of a soul meant to carry light in dark places. Every disappointment becomes discipline. Every rejection becomes redirection. What feels like loss in the moment is often a divine setup for a higher purpose you cannot yet see. When the chosen one forgives those who betrayed them, they step into a frequency few can reach, the vibration of heaven itself. Because forgiveness is not for the other person, it's for the liberation of the soul. It's the moment you stop drinking poison to hurt someone else and start healing yourself instead. That's why suffering is sacred. It forces you to choose. Will you let pain turn you bitter, or will you let it turn you holy? And as the chosen one endures, something extraordinary happens. Their pain becomes wisdom. Their scars become symbols of grace. What once broke them now builds them. They begin to see the divine architecture behind their trials, that every moment of suffering was designed to refine, not destroy. Heaven is not a reward waiting somewhere above. It's the state of peace that forms inside a heart that has survived hell and still chooses love. That's the hidden purpose of suffering. It doesn't just teach you about God. It allows you to become more like Him, to love deeper, to see clearer, to rise stronger. And that in itself is heaven realized.
The narcissist's illusion always looks powerful in the beginning. It sparkles, deceives, and convinces everyone, even the chosen one, that it's real. The narcissist wears confidence like armor, charisma like perfume, and manipulation like a weapon. They craft an identity so polished that people mistake it for strength. But illusion, no matter how perfect it looks, cannot last forever. Truth has its own gravity. It pulls down everything false, no matter how high it climbs. And when the chosen one begins to awaken, when they start living in truth, the narcissist's illusion begins to crumble, piece by piece. At first, the narcissist believes they've won. They feed off attention, control, and admiration. They build an empire of lies, one where they are always the victim or the hero, depending on what keeps them in power. But what they don't see is that God's plan is already in motion. Every time they lie, they weave a thread into their own spiritual trap. Every manipulation tightens it. They think they're climbing higher, but they're building their own fall. The chosen one, on the other hand, begins to see through the fog. They stop reacting. They start observing. And that simple shift from emotional reaction to spiritual awareness is what starts to shake the illusion. The narcissist's illusion depends on blindness. It needs the chosen one to doubt themselves, to question their reality, to feel guilty for things they didn't do. But once the chosen one begins to awaken, the spell breaks. They stop believing the lies. They stop seeking validation. They begin to understand that silence isn't weakness, it's strength. The more the chosen one steps into truth, the more the narcissist loses control. The mask starts to crack, because illusion can't survive in the presence of authenticity. As the chosen one rises, the narcissist begins to unravel. Their greatest fear is exposure, not of what they've done, but of who they truly are. Their entire existence depends on maintaining the image of perfection, superiority, and control. When that image starts to fade, panic sets in. They start to project harder, blame louder, and manipulate deeper. But no matter how loud ego becomes, truth speaks louder. Then the chosen one's peace becomes their punishment. The narcissist can't comprehend how someone they tried to destroy now glows with serenity. That's the moment they begin to collapse, not from external judgment, but from the internal emptiness they've been running from all along. The chosen one's ascension isn't revenge, it's revelation. It exposes the false foundation the narcissist built their life upon. The more the chosen one heals, the more invisible the narcissist becomes. The light that once admired their illusion now sees right through it. People begin to notice the patterns, the inconsistencies, the contradictions. The charm fades, the manipulation stops working, and the admiration turns into avoidance. Their kingdom of control starts to crumble because it was built on lies, not love. This is how God balances the scales. He doesn't send thunder to destroy the narcissist. He sends truth to expose them. And truth doesn't arrive like fire. It arrives like dawn, slowly, quietly, and then suddenly everything is seen. The narcissist tries to hide behind new masks, new victims, new stories, but none of it feels the same. The energy that once powered their deception no longer responds. Their vibration is too low to maintain what light has already left. They are left facing the one enemy they can't outsmart: themselves. For the chosen one, this period feels strange. They no longer seek closure because they understand the narcissist can't give what they don't have. They no longer crave justice because they see that divine justice has already begun. Their focus shifts from revenge to renewal. The chosen one rebuilds quietly, walking in gratitude instead of resentment. They find peace not in explanation, but in elevation. Every prayer, every tear, every sleepless night becomes a seed of wisdom. And as they heal, they start to attract what truly aligns with their soul: genuine love, divine opportunities, and spiritual peace. Meanwhile, the narcissist faces the inevitable collapse of illusion. Their lies start catching up with them, not through external punishment, but through internal corrosion. They lose energy because deceit drains the soul. They lose admiration because truth erases illusion. They lose peace because ego cannot rest. And as their false identity breaks down, they experience the emptiness they've been running from all along. They start to realize that every person they used as supply was only reflecting back the love they never gave themselves. But by then, the narcissist is gone, not out of anger, but out of alignment. The beauty of divine justice is that it doesn't require performance. The chosen one doesn't have to prove anything. They simply have to rise. And that rising, that silent, graceful ascension, is what completes the lesson. The narcissist collapses not because the chosen one fought back, but because they stopped feeding the illusion. Light doesn't argue with darkness. It simply shines until the darkness disappears. This is the power of truth. It dismantles everything false without force. The chosen one's journey becomes living proof that God's justice isn't loud, it's perfect. The narcissist's fall is not caused by revenge, it's caused by exposure. The mask disintegrates, the charm dies, and all that remains is the truth they tried to bury. But by then, it's too late. The chosen one has already ascended into peace, into heaven's frequency, where no illusion can follow. So while it once felt like the narcissist had all the control, the truth was always working behind the scenes. God allowed their arrogance, their deceit, their games, because he knew time would reveal everything. The chosen one's growth was never about defeating them. It was about transcending them. And when that happens, the illusion collapses completely. The narcissist is left standing in the ruins of their own creation, while the chosen one walks freely in light. That's divine order. That's how God wins, not through battle, but through truth. The narcissist's illusion was loud, but temporary. The chosen one's ascension is quiet, but eternal. And in that silence, heaven whispers, "Now you see, this was never a loss. It was your liberation."
When the chosen one stops reacting to the narcissist and begins reflecting divine love, something extraordinary happens. They become God's mirror on earth. Every attack, every insult, every attempt to provoke them loses its power because they no longer respond from ego, they respond from spirit. The chosen one begins to realize that true strength isn't found in revenge or validation. It's found in silence, in stillness, in knowing who they are in God. The narcissist feeds on reaction, chaos, and control. But when the chosen one reaches the point of peace, that energy starves the darkness. It's not weakness, it's divine mastery. This is the moment when heaven is no longer a distant promise, but a living reality reflected through them. God doesn't need the chosen to fight with words. He needs them to shine with light. The more they reflect love, truth, and peace, the more they dissolve the illusion around them.
The narcissist begins to face the one thing they fear most, their own reflection. Because when they look into the eyes of the awakened chosen, they see the emptiness of their own soul. The chosen one becomes a walking revelation, living proof that God's power is not loud or cruel, but calm, patient, and eternal. In this sacred transformation, revenge turns into revelation. The chosen one realizes that they were never meant to destroy their enemy. They were meant to reveal the contrast between truth and illusion. Their glow exposes what darkness tried to hide. Their peace reveals what chaos tried to bury. Their forgiveness becomes the sword that cuts through unseen chains. And as they reflect God's nature, they embody heaven, not as a reward, but as a state of being. At this stage, the chosen one doesn't see the narcissist as a villain anymore. They see them as a mirror of what happens when one lives without God. Empty, restless, desperate for control. That awareness brings compassion, not pity. It's the divine understanding that love doesn't always mean closeness. Sometimes love means letting go and allowing God to finish what He started. The chosen one now walks with quiet authority. They don't chase peace anymore. They are peace. They don't demand justice. They embody it. They don't fear darkness. They illuminate it. Every step, every word, every presence they carry radiates the energy of heaven. And through that reflection, the world around them begins to shift. Hearts awaken, shadows fade, and light multiplies. This is the divine paradox. God wins not by force, but by reflection. The chosen one doesn't conquer evil with war, but with grace. They prove that no darkness can stand before a soul that has become one with divine light. And in that mirror, heaven smiles, because the victory was never about defeating the narcissist. It was about becoming the proof that God was there all along. Heaven's gate doesn't swing open with thunder or applause. It opens quietly, in the stillness of a soul that has finally stopped fighting and started seeing. The battle that once felt endless, filled with confusion, pain, and emotional chaos, suddenly dissolves when the chosen one chooses peace over ego. That single moment when they no longer need to prove, defend, or control marks the true victory. Because the war was never about the narcissist. It was about the inner conflict between fear and faith, between control and surrender, between ego and divine trust. The noise was only a distraction. The real transformation happens in silence, when the chosen one hears God's whisper louder than the narcissist's lies. At first, silence feels uncomfortable. After all the shouting, manipulation, and emotional storms, peace can feel foreign, almost empty. But soon, that silence becomes sacred. It's the space where the soul begins to heal and remember its divine essence. The chosen one starts to see that heaven was never a destination to reach after death. It was a frequency of awareness that was waiting to be unlocked within. Every act of forgiveness opens it a little wider. Every moment of surrender raises its vibration. Heaven responds not to pain, but to purity. And purity is born when ego falls away. As the chosen one sits in their new stillness, something shifts in the unseen. The narcissist, once loud and commanding, begins to lose power. Their control depended on chaos, but chaos cannot survive in peace. The chosen one's silence becomes their shield. It confuses the darkness, frustrates manipulation, and breaks energetic cords that once drained them. The narcissist searches for reaction, anger, tears, fear, but finds nothing to feed on. In that emptiness, their illusion crumbles. That is the hidden power of divine quiet. It doesn't argue, it reveals. It doesn't fight, it exposes. God has always worked through silence. Creation itself began in the void, before there was light, before there was sound. And the chosen one, walking through their own inner void, finally discovers the same creative power. They learn that peace is not passive, it's the highest form of alignment. When they choose not to fight back, not because they are weak, but because they know, they step into divine authority. This is when heaven's gate opens, not above, not beyond, but within. It's the rebirth of the soul that now understands victory was never about winning against others, but about mastering the self. As they sit in their new stillness, the chosen one begins to feel God's presence more deeply than ever before. The signs become clearer, the air feels lighter, their thoughts are no longer heavy or frantic. They flow with grace and truth. The noise of the world fades, and intuition speaks clearly. The heart feels safe again. That's when they realize heaven is not a reward, it's a restoration. It's the return to divine balance, to the soul's original vibration, before pain, before betrayal, before illusion. The silence becomes their sanctuary. It's where divine downloads arrive, where wisdom flows without effort. The chosen one understands that they don't need to chase blessings, they attract them naturally by staying aligned. Life begins to reflect that inner calm. Opportunities open, healing accelerates, relationships either elevate or fall away peacefully. Everything that doesn't match that heaven frequency simply fades, and everything that does begins to glow brighter. The narcissist, still trapped in noise, cannot follow here. Their world runs on chaos, but heaven operates on peace. And that's where the true separation happens. It's not punishment, it's alignment. The chosen one doesn't need to exile the narcissist. The narcissist naturally drifts away, unable to breathe in this higher air. Silence becomes a divine filter, separating what is sacred from what is false. In that sacred quiet, the chosen one also forgives, not because they approve of what happened, but because they refuse to carry the weight any longer. Forgiveness is the key that unlocks the last chain. It's not about the narcissist deserving peace, it's about the chosen one deserving freedom. When they forgive, they release the energy that once kept heaven locked. Every grudge melts, every wound turns to wisdom, and the gate finally opens wide. And as it does, the chosen one feels something profound, not joy that's loud, but peace that's unshakable. It's the kind of peace that doesn't depend on circumstances or validation. It simply is. It's the peace that surpasses understanding, the same peace God promised to those who trust Him completely. The chosen one now walks through life differently, calm, centered, radiant. They speak less, but carry more truth in their silence than they ever did in their words. Their presence heals, their calm inspires, and their energy uplifts without effort. Heaven's gate opens in silence, not as a reward for fighting harder, but for finally letting go. The chosen one doesn't need to prove their worth or earn their divinity. They simply remember it. The moment they stop trying to win the external war and surrender to inner peace, they rise beyond all illusion. And in that sacred stillness, they realize heaven was never lost. It was waiting inside, behind the noise, behind the wounds, behind the endless trying. All it took was one choice: peace over ego. That's where the real victory lies, not in defeating others, but in mastering the self, not in shouting the truth, but in becoming it. And in that quiet moment of surrender, the gates of heaven open, not to welcome someone new, but to celebrate someone who finally remembered who they've always been.